guys? Welcome to a brand new episode of Real Debates Season 2. My God, I am so glad that we start this show back up, and it's been a fun ride. We've done some very interesting matches. We settled some scores. Last week's match was freaking hilarious. Ian came out on top of that, even though I didn't agree with the ruling. It's okay. Ian came on top of that one, but it's all right. But we have a brand new match for you guys. Today's match is going to be me versus Tristan. We have Star Wars Episode 1 versus The Hobbit, The Unexpected Journey. I'll be repping Star Wars Episode 1. Tristan will be repping The Unexpected Journey. And Jeremy is back to moderate us, man. And before I pass it to Jeremy, I want to ask Tristan, man, how are you feeling about the match? And also, welcome back to Real Debates,
Thank
man.
you. Thank you. I'm ready to spill some blood like it's the Battle at Helm's Deep.
I like the references. I love the references.
Okay. And Jeremy, how are you doing, man? How are you feeling since the last time you moderated?
Well, I'm hoping that we don't find out that 2 losses in a row is how you get kicked off of a show. I'm trying to figure out, Alex, as the person, the showrunner, as the person who basically owns this show, I hope that if you lose today, you do not hold a grudge, because I'm not gonna lie. Last round, the one where you and Ian went against each other, it was a very, very narrow margin. So I don't want you to feel bad about that, and I don't want you to think that I'm just here trying to poo on your party. So I hope you bring it today, Alex. That's all I'm saying, man.
Yeah. If I for the people out there who are watching, if I lose, I won't compete for the rest of the season. Maybe. I don't know. I can't hold myself to that. But yeah, let's go ahead and pass. Oh, before I pass it to Jeremy, here are the rules for the people who don't know the match. The rules are very simple. There are 3 rounds. There you have your introduction round where you get to introduce the movie. Each competitor is introducing the movie. The second round is the battle round. We're going to go at each other and basically pick apart the differences between both of our movies. Last and final rounds are final statements where we can wrap things up or continue attacking. Each round is 2 minutes. So Jeremy will be our moderator, and he will be moderating everything, and he'll give his final deliberations at the end of this match. Real quick before I pass it to Jeremy, we have some new Real Debates merch in the link down below. So go check that out. Developing a lot of different things for the brand. So you definitely want to check that out, and it helps support the channel. Now that we've gotten that out the way, Jeremy, go ahead and take it away.
All right, guys, the way that we're going to decide who goes first in the first round is I'm going to allow each competitor to pick a number between 1 and 20. Whoever gets closest to the number that I have chosen gets to decide whether or not they want to go first or second, and then we're going to alternate. So just for example, Alex goes first in round 1. That means he is going to go after Tristan in round 2. And we just kind of keep going back and forth that way. So, guys, I've come up with a number between 1 and 20, and I'm going to allow our guest to pick first. So, Tristan, choose a number between 1 and 20.
That'd be 12 dwarves plus a hobbit makes 13. So I'm going to go 13.
All right. Alex, what you got, man?
Well, I'm a do 1 Qui-Gon Jinn and 1 Obi, 1 Kenobi plus a Anakin Skywalker. So we're going to do 3.
All right, Alex. Tristan, your number was 13, and the number that I chose was 11, making you the closest. So would you like to kick things off, or would you like to allow Alex to give his opening statement first?
Yeah, I think I'll go first.
All right.
Awesome.
All right. I'm looking forward to it. Here we go. Let me get my trusty little counter thing here. We can rock this out. Okay, so you've got 2 minutes. Timer. And you've got 2 minutes starting now.
All right, in a hole in the ground, there lived a hobbit. Legendary J.R.R. Tolkien had The Hobbit published in 1937, and it has remained one of the greatest fantasy tales of all time, a masterwork of world building and characters. That mastery is carried over 75 years later when in 2012, Peter Jackson released The Hobbit, An Unexpected Journey. Filling the roles of legendary characters were incredible actors like Martin Freeman as the titular Hobbit, Richard Armitage as Thorin Oakenshield, son of Thrain, and a plethora of the greatest actors of all time returning, like Ian McKellen as Gandalf the Grey, Kate Blanchett as Galadriel, Hugo Weaving as Elrond, and Andy Serkis as Gollum. Also returning from Lord of the Rings, film composer Howard Shore, the John Williams of Middle Earth. All top talents lending their sword, their axe, their bow to bring life to one of the greatest literary works of fiction to ever grace the world. The story of an unsuspecting hobbit being whisked away on a life or death adventure of camaraderie and peril. What is The Hobbit? This is a story of how a Baggins had an adventure and found himself doing and saying things altogether unexpected.
Beautiful setup. You got a couple seconds left to spare, and I don't think you need it. All right, so you've really set the stage nicely. You've kind of alluded to some of your deep cut knowledge of not only the lore, but the cast and the crew as well, mentioning Howard Shore as the John Williams of Middle Earth. I really like that. All right, so strong opening, Tristan. Good job. Alex, you know what you're working with here. I'm going to give you the 3 count, and you can just go and let me know why you've chosen The Phantom Menace as the worst prequel in 3, 2, 1. Go ahead.
So this was an interesting movie because, like all Star Wars movies, almost all of them are, controversial. But with this movie, although it's very controversial, it does give us the groundwork of how the Jedi essentially became to be. We have our origin story, a somewhat of an origin story of Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan, and then we get to see Anakin for the first time as a kid. And as we see the adventures of episode 1, it's slow. It has a lot of quirky moments, but we get to see Qui-Gon be basically a mentor to Obi-Wan, training Obi-Wan to be the God Jedi that we know and love so much. In this particular film, we see their journey together as they're looking for the up and coming Jedi, and also completing their overall mission. We get to see Anakin as a little kid who is basically, he's obviously, he has the Force, but he's a really intellectual being that they kind of explain in the movie. But when we see him build his own, I want to call them pod racers. I'm not really sure the actual terminology of what it is, but that pod racing scene was actually really cool to see a little kid engage in that type of that racing, not necessarily combat, but racing. But it showed that Anakin was destined for greater things. And Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon knew that as they were pursuing and looking for Anakin. The fight scenes in this movie are probably the best lightsaber scenes that we've seen in a Star Wars movie to date. Well, not to date, but prior to the original trilogy. Things are definitely escalated. The graphics look a lot better than the original trilogy. And George Lucas, although he directed these movies, I think he spent more. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well done. Really, really good points brought up there, Alex. You mentioned that this was a controversial Star Wars movie. I think there are two not controversial Star Wars movies. I believe that would be A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back. You think people are unanimous?
Rogue One is fairly non-controversial. I think most people are like, Rogue One's pretty solid.
Rogue One is pretty solid.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't know that everybody thinks so, but I definitely am in that camp. All right, so great opening arguments, or both opening statements on each side. So I'm beginning to realize as we get into this, the movie that loses this debate will be the worst prequel. Each of these competitors is arguing why their film is better than the other, leaving the one at the very bottom of the pile. I respect that you guys both chose the movies that you did because, as Alex mentioned about controversial, these are movies that are very divisive among even the most dedicated of fans to both respective trilogies. So really great opening arguments, you guys. We're going to go ahead and switch over into round 2, which Alex eloquently put at the beginning is the battle round. This is an opportunity for each competitor to kind of start to poke holes in the opponent's film. Let's see if there's anything we can be critical about of The Hobbit or Star Wars, the Force, or the Phantom Menace. So,
Yeah.
all right, we started with Tristan last round, so that means we're gonna go ahead and start with Alex this round. You got 2 minutes on the clock, sir. In 3, 2, 1, and go.
So, watching The Hobbit is literally watching a long, drawn out story about nothing. I mean, the movie literally takes a half an hour or maybe 45 minutes into the movie for it to actually get started. We don't even really know the premise of The Hobbit until, like I said, 30 minutes or maybe 45 minutes into the movie. This is definitely does not hold up to what we know to be Lord of the Rings. If you watch Lord of the Rings, if you read the books, you know it's obviously the mystical middle earth element, but you have darkness, you have grit, you have action. The Hobbit does not have that at all. It's
the fuck happened, man?
A lot of dwarfs and a lot of singing. I mean, if is this a Lord of the Rings movie or a very vague Disney movie that wanted to be dark and different?
'Cause I'm a bad motherfucker.
I don't know. Like this movie makes no sense at all. I mean, let's be clear, let's be honest. A lot of the things that happen in The Hobbit don't even necessarily make sense in terms of telling the story of the Lord of the Rings.
Late for what?
Oh!
Like I said, a lot of things don't tend to happen until the middle half of the movie. When I watched Star Wars Episode 1, again, like I stated in my last debate, there's a beginning, middle, and end. The whole point of Episode 1 is to basically find Anakin and train him, and also go through some trials and tribulations. I can agree that Episode 1 is by far very controversial, but at least we get things going. And when we watch the movie, when you watch The Hobbit, I literally slept and someone had to wake me up to say, okay, now some shit is happening.
Get the fuck out.
I'm sorry. The Hobbit is definitely a downfall in comparison to its 3-part trilogy that really needed to be just one movie. But that's my time. I yield my time. Tristan, do your best to try to fight me.
That was very good, Alex. I really appreciate that last point that you made. Not to overplay my hand, but personal preference, I do agree with you. It kind of should have been one movie, or it could have been told in one movie. So I think that last little zinger at the end there really, really helped you out. Trilogy needed to be one movie. All right, Tristan, you heard what you are going up against. I trust that you've got some good rebuttals, as well as just make some cases as why Phantom Menace might not be as great as Alex thinks it is. In 3, 2, 1, and go.
Look, I thought a long time ago that this should have been 1 or 2 movies, The Hobbit, but I've found that within The Hobbit, within the book, a majority of the world has read this book. Everybody, even if you don't like The Hobbit, has a favorite part. What you can do when you break your book down into multiple films is you can spend time with every single section of that book. In doing so, guaranteeing that everybody who has a favorite part of the book gets to see their favorite part acted out in beautiful live action by incredible actors. But let's talk about George Lucas. George Lucas is a wonderful world builder, but he is a dreadful writer and an even worse director. Damn! There's so many problems with the movie. I'll go ahead and point out a few. Easy target, Jar Jar Binks. Everything is hated and is eventually loved by someone, except for Binks. No one likes him. Younger Yoda puppet. This thing is so horrid and hairy that when I watched the movie when I was a kid, I thought he had a mustache so thick that he was about to go pick up Dolly Parton from the best little whorehouse on Alderaan.
The path to the dark side.
Duel of the Fates. Y'all ready for this? Duel of the Fates. This is a mediocre fight scene. It is not that great.
Man, you must be high the motherfucker.
I get it. Lightsabers are so cool. They're so flashy. It makes us feel so good. But where is the story within this fight scene? Star Wars used to be so good at telling a story within a single fight, whether it's through the art of fencing or the art of Bushido. Sure, it's cool. Phantom Menace brought in Wushu with Ray Park, and Ray Park is an excellent martial artist. But there is a trend within the prequels that the fight scenes don't tell any sort of story. The fight scenes are just there to be pretty. Take it from somebody who has watched martial arts films from all over the world, way back from the 60s to now to the 40s with Akira Kurosawa. the fight scenes are nothing. When I watch them, I have to remind myself, is this actually good? Or am I just happy to see lightsabers? And half the time, I'm just usually happy to see lightsabers. They're really not that great.
Cut your beads off and shove them in your mouth. His beads? His beads, sister. His hairy, stinking beads.
Midichlorians. You know what the Force is? The Force is an energy field created by all living things. It surrounds us, it penetrates us, it binds the galaxy together. But it turns out you can only be good at it if you have really good blood. What the fuck is that? Jesus Christ. Speaking of Darth Maul, by the way, Darth Maul is the coolest character.
Cut it
Gotcha.
down. Shut
We're
it
good.
down. Shut it down. That was beautifully done.
Yes,
Beautifully
it was.
done. Some hangmakers there. I think that's the first time I've ever heard anybody compare Yoda to Burt Reynolds, but I appreciated it. Is that who's in Best Little Whorehouse in Texas?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Nice. Yeah, I like that. That was good. Jar Jar Binks, he says, is controversial. I haven't actually heard that before, but I'll take your word for it.
He's like the most hated character in Star Wars.
There's a canon book that they literally just made him a jester on the street after the Empire rose and the Republic fell. He's that hated that even in a book they're like, nah, he's a jester now. Nobody gives a crap about him.
He's a fool. That poor guy too. The actor, man, had a tough.
I mean,
tough go at
I
it.
hate the character. The actor's fine. I like him.
All right. Well, I'm not taking any of that stuff into consideration as we move into round number 3. Tristan, you just now went. However, you were second to go in round number 2. So I'm going to give you 2 minutes in this final round that you have here to really drive home A, why Phantom Menace is the worst prequel, and B, what makes The Hobbit better than The Phantom Menace. You can approach it any way you'd like to, but those are the things that I'm really listening for in this particular round. So are you ready for round number 3, the final round, Tristan?
Ready to go
All
now?
right. Yeah, let's do it. 3, 2, 1, go.
All right, look, both of these movies are extremely flawed. I am a Star Wars diehard from head to toe since I could speak. I can recite every line of dialogue from the first 6 movies, and eventually I will watch the new ones enough to be able to do just that. I will always appreciate George Lucas for creating a world so near and dear to my heart, but the man needed people to tell him no. And for 3 movies, no one did that.
Be mindful of the living force, young Padawan.
Yes, master.
Peter Jackson was tired of the world of Middle-earth after The Lord of the Rings, but even in his exhaustion, he could not make a movie as frustrating as The Phantom Menace. His skills as a director are too great, and his source material that is the writing of J.R.R. Tolkien is too rich and masterful to do wrong. Throw in performances like Martin Freeman, Ian McKellen, Andy Serkis, and hell, the music of Howard Shore, all of that combined, you just can't make something as frustrating as The Phantom Menace. Tolkien was a master of dialogue, even if the words sound foreign as they describe a nonsense of this outlandish world, it flows together so beautifully as an orchestra of medley and whimsy that it just feels so good to hear.
The Prague.
Is he a great wizard or is he more like you?
The battle of riddles between Gollum and Bilbo is so enthralling, it can match up against any saber battle or the Battle of Helm's Deep that I brought up earlier. Andy Serkis's performance as the most underappreciated actor in the world because no one takes him seriously.
Oh, what?
Like I said earlier, the benefit of the books being broken up is everybody gets their favorite parts. My favorite parts, the beginning where Gandalf is trying to break down what it means to be told good morning. Bilbo trying to distract the trolls before sunlight turns them to stone. So many incredible moments that we get to see because the film takes time to revel, to relish in all of those wonderful moments. You're good. I'm good. We got the time. We're good.
Yeah, you nailed that. Literally right as the timer went off. And man, some just fantastic points. Some things that really, really resonated with me. I'm glad that you brought up the Battle of Riddles because one of my favorite riddles, I mean, just in the history of riddles, is what's in my pocket.
Yeah, it's great.
How is that a riddle? I'm not sure, but that's fine. That's fine. Oh, that was really good. All right, this is going to be difficult. Alex, you heard what Tristan had to say about the Phantom Menace.
I did.
You heard what he had to say about An Unexpected Journey and Tolkien's use of language. That Peter Jackson, yeah, he was exhausted, but he still made strong movies just because he's too good of a director and has too much rich lore. So you've got 2 minutes to make your closing arguments and let me know, A, what makes The Hobbit, An Unexpected Journey the worst prequel, and then what makes The Phantom Menace a good film. 2 minutes begin now.
So he mentioned George Lucas was never told no. Neither was Percy Jackson. I mean, Percy Jackson even said in an interview said that I winged it with the Hobbit movies. Those are his words. Like he winged it with those movies. And at the end of the day, when you're talking about that battle scene in the Hobbit, I would argue that Darth Maul scene fighting Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon was actually a little bit more interesting. If I break down Star Wars Episode 1, it's simple. You have 2 Jedis looking for a younger Jedi. They face conflict and they have an interesting story in between. And they're trying to raise up a Jedi while defeating Darth Maul and continue the lineage how will we know and love to be Star Wars. Star Wars set the precedence of wanting more Star Wars. People wanted more Star Wars after Episode 1. When you watch the Hobbit trilogy, part 1, 2, 3, whatever you want to call it, people are not clamoring for a Lord of the Rings series than they are Star Wars. Today, Star Wars is still the biggest movie franchise today in terms of wanting that lore because it has that lore. When you talk about The Hobbit, people wanting the best parts, we didn't get the best parts of the first movie because it took so long to get to the end of the movie.
Do the math, motherfucker. Do the math, nigga, please.
At the end of the day, there was more explanation than there was substance. And that's why I have a problem with The Hobbit is that, yes, it explains so much, but that battle that you reference, if you don't know the source material, you don't really understand it. Even watching the movie, you're like, okay, why are they doing this? Minor conflict. Doesn't make any sense. At the end of the day, if you compare the two, you have Star Wars with great fighting, great story, great conclusion. Hobbit, you have a long drawn out story that has to be stretched out in 3 films when it could have just been finished in 1. I'm done.
Really, really well done, Alex. You got 5 seconds left to spare, and I think you nailed on a lot of very, very strong points in that final round. You guys are not making this easy on me. I've been taking.
I need to say something real quick.
I don't think you do. But please do.
Percy Jackson. Percy Jackson is the main character of the Lightning
Jackson.
Thief.
I would definitely throw that back. Oh, he mentioned George Lucas was never told no. Neither was Percy Jackson. I mean, Percy Jackson even said in an interview said that I winged it with the Hobbit movies. Those are his words. Like he winged it with those movies. And at the end of
I'm glad you brought that up. I don't know if you saw my face. We'll see that in playback.
I did. I saw it.
I would definitely play that back.
I mean, Dead or Alive is my favorite Percy Jackson.
I was like, fuck, I just did a Frank. Oh my God.
You did. You franked it, man. You franked it up. That's good. That's good. So yeah, I mean, this was a very, very interesting take on 2 films that I've heard discussed ad nauseum. I think each of you brought up things that have heard and thought about myself. And then you've also kind of come and brought things to the table that I never even really considered. So what I'm trying to decide right now, for those of you folks keeping track at home, is who made the stronger argument, because whoever was able to defend their movie the most is essentially proving that the other film is the worst prequel. So we've got these 2 huge franchises, 2 of the most beloved franchises in the history of Hollywood. It's hard to argue with Alex's point that Star Wars lore is universal. People have been craving it and clamoring for it. I'm not sure what the temp was after the release of The Phantom Menace and how many it excited versus how many it let down. However, you know, the proof is in the pudding. There have been several more Star Wars films made since then. Not so much the case with The Hobbit. That said, we have a huge franchise that's going to be released on Amazon Prime here relatively soon to show that people are ready to return to Middle Earth. So let's take a look at it round by round, shall we? In round number 1, Tristan just had a fantastic setup, really took me there. And I you know, back to your John Wick debate that you and I did, you're really good at setting the table and really presenting how it is that you connect to it, as well as how it is that it connects to the zeitgeist. And you really set the stage nicely there. As I mentioned up at the top, you proved that you had a knowledge of the lore as well as the other side of things. So not just the source material, but also the production. You talked about the music, you talked about the casting, and this is something that you mentioned a couple times, is the clever wordplay of J.R. Tolkien. And I think that his prose is so distinct and recognizable. I'm glad you brought that up. So you had a very strong round one. In round one, Alex brought up that, this is a controversial Star Wars film. However, it does lay the groundwork really nicely for what's coming up. It's a simple story that is self-contained. It's an origin story for Obi-Wan. It also introduces us to Qui-Gon, who's this very powerful Jedi. And it is building towards the eventual fall of Anakin Skywalker to Darth Vader. I thought you touched on a lot of that stuff very nicely, Alex. My favorite parts already were you hitting a little bit on the slow pace of the Hobbit trilogy, but you mentioned the great lightsaber battles, and you also mentioned that the VFX look a lot better. I think that one's up for debate, but those are some of the points that you made in round one. So as I'm looking through, I have to give that one to Tristan. It felt very concise. It felt very well thought out, and it was a nice flow. I just think that you broadly touched on many of the things that I think I and other audience members responded to in that. So round number one, I got to give that to Tristan. Well done. Round number two, as we go into this, Alex went first in this round, and he was talking about watching The Hobbit is like watching a story about nothing. I think my wife would concur. I think she would totally agree. You said it's 45 minutes before the movie starts. I tend to agree with you there. I think there's a lot of filler at that dinner scene or whatever when the dwarves show up at Hobbiton. Doesn't hold up to Lord of the Rings. 100% doesn't hold up to Lord of the Rings. I think the same could be said about both of them, but you brought it up. That's a valid point. You said that The Hobbit doesn't have the grit that Lord of the Rings had, and I couldn't agree more. It's a beautiful looking film, but super, super polished. The dwarves singing, again, episode one is self-contained. At least it gets things going. It moves at a relatively quick pace. And that you slept through The Hobbit. That was pretty good. Again, I think my wife would co-sign that statement. And you said the trilogy needed to be one movie. I do think that's a popular critique, and I also think it's popular because it's valid. To that, when we'll move on to round three, but Tristan said that because the fact that it's so long and because it had room to breathe and was stretched out, it means that you can spend more time in every section of the story. It gives each moment room to breathe, and that will service fans regardless of what part of the lore that you're interested in. I think that was a really great point to counter that. Lucas can't write or direct. It's a pretty bold statement.
I mean, the original trilogy would discounter that. I mean,
he didn't write Empire. He didn't write Return.
He didn't write Return, but he
wrote
directed
the basis
all three of those
for
movies.
He wrote
and
the
he had
basis
final
for
say. I'm just saying.
Oh yeah. All right. For Alex's, the movie doesn't get going for 45 minutes. Tristan's got a Jar Jar Binks in his back pocket. Really liked the best little whorehouse in Texas reference. Duel of the Fates isn't a great scene. You lost me there, bro. You lost me there.
I stand by it. That choreography.
Like,
is
what the hell are you talking about?
Nah, I stand by it. That choreography is ass.
Is it too clean? Is that your?
It's not even too clean. It's that they're not aiming for each other. They're just throwing lightsabers all over the place.
All right, I can see that they're aiming to strike the other person's lightsaber.
Yeah, they're just aiming at lightsabers.
Yeah, all right, I can see that.
Isn't that the whole point? Like, they're not like the Jedi is not supposed. I mean, well, I don't know. I'm not a huge Star Wars fan. So.
well, we'll circle back around to it. I don't want my decision to be affected too much. And I love that you brought up midichlorians. And then not only did you bring up midichlorians, you used the Yoda quote. Wait, no, the Obi-Wan quote from the original trilogy. I thought that was a really good usage of that. Was it Obi-Wan or was it Yoda?
It was Obi-Wan, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, like 3 people have said it, or 5, but
Yeah.
Obi-Wan said it first.
And you said it, and I'm adding you to the list of really good use of that line. I think that was a nice little way to wrap things up there. So in round number 2, I think both of you had really strong arguments. Just for the sake of entertainment value, I got to give that one to Alex. I think you had some really good takedowns of The Hobbit. So I enjoyed that. I keep saying The Hobbit. I do mean An Unexpected Journey for the folks at home. So Unexpected Journey versus The Phantom Menace. That's what we're talking about here. All right. So Tristan, Tristan round number 1, Alex round number 2, and in round number 3, this is when we kind of wrap things up. Tristan went first in this one. He said he's a Star Wars fan. I think that's apparent. He appreciates George Lucas, but George Lucas had too many yes men during the trilogy, which I definitely think that that's valid. He said that Peter Jackson was exhausted and didn't even really want to come back to Middle Earth, but just out of the fact that he's such a strong filmmaker and the source material is so rich and beloved that it was hard to make a bad movie just out of those two things. I think that's a great point. The performances I think are a little some are better than others, but the performers, which you mentioned several of them by name, really, really a great cast. I've touched on a couple times the fact that you mentioned the masterful use of language and the deconstruction of the expression "good morning." I really enjoyed that. I like that you brought up the Battle of Riddles. That was my dumb joke that what's in my pocket is it's clearly not a riddle, but that's fine because there were others that were. Favorite parts expanded. You touched on that again. In this third round, Alex made some really good points as well. He said Percy Jackson is winged it in the Hobbit movies. That was a good point. I knew what you meant, Alex. It's fine.
On camera that he winged it. Okay. Yes, I will run the playback on myself because I understand I mess up too. So
it happens. It happens, man. You're good. I like that you came back and you countered and you said, "Nah, dude, Darth Maul's fight scene is amazing." And again, you touched on the fact that it's an easy to follow, self-contained story, where there's not a real clear narrative thrust in The Hobbit. You said episode 1 left people wanting more, and The Hobbit didn't. I don't know. I can't speak to what everybody wanted. However, Star Wars continued on. We didn't see more theatrical releases of The Hobbit. However, the future may hold different things. You said that Star Wars has the most beloved lore. I mean, there's no debating that. This is something that, resonates with people of all ages, races, nationalities, creeds, all that stuff. The best parts in The Hobbit, in An Unexpected Journey, they didn't even get to because it took so long for the movie to get going. I really like that. That's good stuff. And you said it's more explanation than it is substance. And I find that compelling. And that's something that it hit my ears different because a lot of these things, have been touched on, but I think that's a really good point. It leans so heavily into the lore and into the fan service kind of stuff that it kind of gets lost up its own ass at certain times. So I appreciated that. That said, as I'm looking at everything together, I feel like round 3, this is the one that's going to make or break it. And Alex, I love you, bro, but I got to give this one to Tristan. I think Tristan, you did a freaking fantastic job, dude. I don't know. Can we pipe in some applause here? I always feel like we need to.
Oh yeah!
Yay! Good job! All right, dude. Very, very well fought, you guys. I'm gonna play my hand real quick and then I'll pass this back off. But I think both of you did an excellent job. Personally, I do believe that the Unexpected Journey is a better film than the Phantom Menace, and I hope that didn't sway my judgment too much.
I think we're also missing the actual worst prequel, and that is Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them.
Oh yeah. I didn't even think of that because it's so bad. Like, oh god,
you just repressed it, got it out of your mind. Yeah. These are 2 of the most iconic prequels, and you guys did really good. I do feel like The Hobbit was a massive step down from the Lord of the Rings trilogy. I don't think anybody's debating that. However, I do think that there were enough moments in it and just living in Middle Earth, just like you said, Tristan. Like for people who are fans of Lord of the Rings, I will spend
And like
15
Alex
hours
is sitting
in
here
Peter
talking,
Jackson's.
Alex is talking crap about the dwarves singing, but let me know if you've read that book, if you like that chapter, you say there's not a good part until the end. No, that whole book is full of wonderful moments. And if you love those moments, the movie spends time with those moments. And when those dwarves start singing, you're like, fuck yeah, they're singing.
Yeah, but like it's like, and I read the book, but for me, it's like, okay, when you come off something like Lord of the Rings, like True Grit, and then you go into The Hobbit with that
True
same
Grit's a different movie.
expectation. I'm just saying, as in general, like it's like, okay, I can care less about Hobbit singing. I can go see a Disney movie for that. Like, and that's the thing. Like, I agree. Like the books, I feel like the books tell a great story of what The Hobbit is. But kind of what Jeremy said, they spend a lot of time in that table scene. They said spend a lot of time about dwarfs that we really don't care about. Like, it's the reason why I believe The Hobbit's probably on par of probably the most hated trilogy ever, because it shouldn't be 3 movies. That's just me.
I own every single Star Wars movie on Blu-ray. I don't own a single Middle Earth movie.
Is that right?
Yeah, I wish I owned at least the Lord of the Rings trilogy. There's just movies that you wish. I don't own Back to the Future. I don't own Indiana Jones. I wish I did. I just don't.
Yeah, well, my movie collection is right there. It's just a void. I have 0 movies. I own Batman 1989 on my YouTube subscription. Literally, that's all I have. I sold all my Blu-rays and shit years ago, and I don't know. There's so many movies available to just watch at your leisure anytime that I don't know. So I wonder if that makes me less of a fan sometimes, though. I really do. I had a existential moment last night that I was like, oh shit, am I really a fan? If I don't buy all this stuff, am I really a fan? I don't know. Tristan, I gave you a shout out on the podcast last night because I think your Mortal Kombat video was excellent. And I was just kind of talking up how you are incredibly knowledgeable in everything that you discuss. If you guys haven't checked out Martial Arts Film Freak, head over there and subscribe to that YouTube channel. Obviously, you guys are here at Momentum Media, and if this is your first time being here, make sure that you subscribe so that you can stay up to date with all of these real debates. Alex, I hope you have me back as the moderator sometime soon. I really enjoy it. It's a lot less pressure on my end until the very end when I inevitably have to break somebody's heart. So, yeah, it was great, though. I think both of you guys did an excellent job. Over to you, Alex.
Awesome. And yeah, I'm definitely going to bring Jeremy back, but just for the fans out there, I probably won't be competing the rest of this season. So I'm definitely going to be looking at some different things. I don't know. I might come back. I'm not sure.
You should come back.
But you never know. But yeah, it's been fun, man. Jeremy did an amazing job.
Thank
Tristan, you. I tip my hat to you because you did an amazing job as well. Yep. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. And as always, you guys, you have a blessed day. We have